Hi, I'm Eva, and in this video I'll be attempting to read for 2 hours every single day for a week. I actually didn't expect at all that it would go the way it did and that I would discover such interesting and mind-boggling books along the way. So grab yourself a hot drink and get cozy, and I'll take you along on this reading challenge. And the first book that I will read for this video is House of Furies by Madeleine Roux. I have actually never really heard about this book. I just kind of picked it up on a sale, I think, one day many years ago, and I always thought that this looks like very creepy and perfect for the Halloween season. There are also pictures inside like this or like this. I read about 80 pages in 2 hours, I think, but it kind of depends on the book, like how fast I'm reading, and also here are pictures inside, so it could be that I'm reading more than 80 pages. If I feel like reading more than 2 hours, I will definitely do that as well. If I want to read, then I'm going to read, but if I don't feel like reading that day, I have to at least read 2 hours every single day.
What happens when the world ends? At least this is an okay barn for running into you. It's an awful house, and I wanted to get you out. I'm working on a plan right now to come through. I've waited for a lifetime for you to calm down. Oh, nothing feels the same without you now. I've waited for a lifetime for you to calm down, 'cause nothing feels the same without you now. What's the point in dreaming if I lose my voice? The second I get caught by you, I wanted you to know that I'm afraid, but we can make it go away.
So I have finished my 2 hours for today, and I have read until page 157, which is so much more than I would have expected to read, honestly. Like I said, I usually read around 80 pages in 2 hours. Like I usually read 40 pages per hour, and 157, like how did I do this? I'm not really sure. It's probably because like all of the chapters have like a whole page, so like that's probably why I've read this much. But yeah, I'm pretty happy about this. This book is very creepy and very fun so far. Like it's super interesting. There's this super creepy house, and we don't really know like what's going on in this house. This orphan Louisa is getting a job at this house. We know that the people who are visiting this place are not getting out of their life because they have done some very bad things earlier in their life, and they deserve to die. That's basically also what is told in like the very first page of the book, so it's not even a real spoiler. I basically already knew what this book was roughly gonna be about before like even starting the first chapter, and like that's the only thing that I didn't really enjoy about it, because if the first page hadn't been there, I would have been like so much more shocked and so much more gripped by this whole story so far. But I'm pretty sure there's going to happen a lot more over the next half of the book, and yeah, I'm pretty hyped to see what it's going to be about and what's going to happen next. And all of the side characters are also like very interesting and very lovable so far, and I feel like it also has this little bit of a found family trope, but the found family is not really a family yet, but I expect it to be at some point in the story. Yeah, I think that's basically all I can tell you about it so far. I will read on tomorrow. Maybe I read on a little bit later tonight if I feel like it, but if I don't feel like it, I'm going to read on tomorrow. I have finished the last pages of House of Furies by Madeleine Roux in 1 hour and 36 minutes today. Like, I have no words. Like, this book surprised me so incredibly much. I did not expect at all to like it that much, for it to have like this many twists and turns. It was so spooky and creepy and eerie and a really true gothic horror story with like a little bit of fantasy in it. How did I have this standing on my shelves for years and years and years and never picked it up because I thought like, oh yeah, I've never heard of it, and then it being like a complete page turner and written absolutely beautifully and having so much depth and so many things happening. I'm actually really thinking about giving it 5 stars, and I think I really might give it 5 stars, even though like the first half of the book was a little bit more boring than it could have been because of the first page. Like, it still was extremely well written, and like I never got bored for a second there. I think that's basically all you need in a 5-star book, especially like the ending was so insane. It says down here, Harper teen. I've always been like flipping the book around and being like, is it really a teen book? Because like it didn't really feel like a teen book at all. And I actually found out that this is not a standalone book but a trilogy. So yeah, I might purchase those other 2 books very soon just to have them in my collection. I hope that like this edition also exists for the other books. I'm not 100% sure because I'm pretty sure I bought this in like 2016 or something like that. If you've never heard of this book and if gothic horror fantasy sounds like something you would enjoy, please do yourself a favor and pick up this book. It will not disappoint you, I promise you. Like, I really promise you. Like, it was such a page turner. It's actually Halloween today, so it was perfect for me to read it today and to finish it today. And now I have around 20 minutes left to read for today, but I don't think I will be reading them now. I think I will be reading for 20 minutes later at night when I'm going to bed, because I really want to spend this evening with my boyfriend, playing Resident Evil and doing a little bit of some spooky things.
Don't know what I'm feeling, don't know how to keep my thoughts straight, yeah. You got me second guessing, thinking that I made a mistake, but inside feels so nice. Butterflies, wow, yeah. Got me some type of way with every passing day. Don't let it go to waste. Don't know how much time we have, and it's so hard for me to say what's really on my mind. I hope someday you'll realize.
As you can see, I'm sitting in my new reading chair. Like, the lighting is not perfect right now because it's at night and, you know, it's making weird shadows because I haven't completely figured that out yet, how to do this. Sitting close to a wall and having like fake lighting that isn't daylight will always create shadows. After finishing House of Furies, I was like so pleasantly surprised with reading something that I've never really heard of before, that I really wanted to do that again. And I wanted to read something else that I haven't heard of before. So I picked up A Witch in Time, which I have just a few months ago bought on my Kindle. The reviews said that it's kind of similar to Eddie LaRue. And if you didn't know, Eddie LaRue is like my absolute #1 favorite book. Like, I absolutely adore that book. It really makes you think about life, you know? That's what I really hope to get out of A Witch in Time. But it didn't turn out like that, I guess. The first, I don't know, 20, 30 pages were actually really good. There's this woman and she's recently had a divorce and she's meeting up with this guy on this blind date, and this guy says, yeah, we've known each other from 1880 or something like that. And I'm like, alright, that seems magical, that seems kind of fun. Then we get to see the backstory of all of that. In that backstory, she's a little girl with another name, but she's still like kind of the same person. And he is a painter, an adult painter. Like he's not painting adult things, but he's adult. And he's asking Juliet, which she's called in the other life in like the 1800s, if she wants to be painted again. And he asks her mother, and her mother says, no, that's kind of inappropriate. She's supposed to get married soon. But I think like in the 1800s, you got married off like a lot younger than you did nowadays. But then they all agree like, yeah, it's okay that she's getting painted again by this painter. And she goes over to his house, and she has to be painted with her little brother, who's like 1 year old or something like that. Then her little brother gets sent off to sleep because he's so little, so he needs to sleep. And then she's sitting there alone, posing for this painting by this painter. And then suddenly this painter like comes to her and says like, oh yeah, what are your dreams? And then she says she wants to live in Paris one day. And then he says, oh yeah, I've painted you Paris. And then he gives her Paris, like a painting of Paris. They suddenly kiss and have and then it says like they are bound for life. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And yeah, that's the second I closed the book, because no, I'm sorry, but like she's a little girl that like still needs to be approved to do whatever she wants to do by her mother. So she's definitely not that old. And he is an adult painter who, by the way, has a wife, and the wife is pregnant by him. Excuse me? And then they have consensual. No. Yeah, I was out of there. And then I've read the Goodreads reviews, and I was like, okay, it's good that I didn't continue reading, because it seemed to be going on like this. And then I decided to pick up an audiobook instead, because I was honestly so done with reading for that day. I was like, no, I don't want to read another word physically, so I'm just gonna listen to an audiobook. And yeah, I've started Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham, and I'm, I don't know, 2 hours into it, and it's super interesting. It's so cool to see like how she started. If you didn't know, Lauren Graham is the actor of Lorelai from Gilmore Girls. I'm absolutely obsessed with Gilmore Girls. Like, I've always loved Gilmore Girls, but like right now I'm rewatching it with my boyfriend, so I'm like completely in the mood. And it's so interesting to hear like how she started out and what her first like gigs as an actor were, and like how she tried to get to that goal of acting. She actually started out, like her first ever performance was in Michigan, and then I think her second performance was in Kalamazoo. I never said this on this channel before, but I actually did a year abroad in like 10th grade in Michigan, in like very close to Kalamazoo, a little bit more south. It really hit me in the feels that she started out in that area as well. Not as well, because I didn't start out acting, but you know, like that she was there. And like that's so crazy to me. In general, hearing her talk, like she talks like Lorelai in real life, and I actually didn't expect that. Like I kind of thought, I don't know, that she's just a very good actor, and she talks a little bit different, because most actors do. Most actors talk a little bit different in real life than they do when they're acting. And I have to listen to 1 more hour today to like complete my 2 hours of reading. The following day I started a new book called The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly, and it's this fairy tale horror story about a boy who's just recently lost his mother, and his father's getting married again, so he has to move to the house of his new wife, where a lot of old storybooks exist. And one day he finds himself in this fairy tale world where the stories end differently than in the fairy tales you know.
I could show you, I'd hope that you could see all the possibilities. There could be a place for you and me. And under the stars, you pack up your car, 'cause you're going far away from here. I wish I 100 degrees when you call my name, and I don't know what you see. Hope we feel the same. I feel 100 degrees when you call my name, and I don't know what you see. Hope we feel the same.
I'm exactly halfway through the Book of Lost Things. This book is kind of an up and down for me. Like, I have these little moments where I'm like, oh yeah, it's getting really good and it's getting really interesting. And then I'm getting bored again, and I don't know if it's the writing style or if it's the story in general. I always drift off while reading this book, and not drifting off to sleep, but drifting off in my thoughts. I mean, that happens a lot to me because I have ADHD, but I always notice when it's like because I'm bored of the story, or if it's like because I'm just tired or something like that, or unconcentrated. There was one scene just before I stopped reading which was super gripping and super interesting and had a super intriguing character, but then the scene got resolved because we were talking about a fairy tale world here, so there are always these different scenes with different fairy tale characters, and the scene got resolved and we're in a different scene now with a different character, and he's just not as interesting. Like, we always have that one main character, but like he's meeting several other side characters. I'm just not a fan of jumping from scenario to scenario. Like, I also don't really like detective shows or doctor shows or something like that, because like there are always like these different cases and you never really have like one plot line, but you always have like these many different cases, and I always get bored by that. I'm sorry, but like I don't care about short stories. I want to have like one continuous story, and of course it's kind of like, of course it's a continuous story because it's one story where a lot happens, but to me it feels like, I don't know, not one thing, not one plotline happens, but so many different plot lines are happening, and just for a very short while, and then we're saying goodbye to that side character again and we're getting to know another side character. And I don't know, I feel like there needs to be kind of like a balance between those extremes. And tomorrow is my last day of this reading challenge, and I'm kind of excited, to be honest, because like pressuring myself this much to read 2 hours for every single day made me sometimes enjoy the reading a little bit less. Like, I sometimes just have days where I don't want to read at all, and sometimes I have days where I just want to read for 5 hours straight. And like, that's completely okay. I don't have to have like a same staying performance of reading every single day. And like, if you're like that too, like that's completely fine, honestly. I want to read another half hour in bed later and read the last 3 hours that my Kindle says that I have left tomorrow and finish that book tomorrow. So I want to read 1 hour more tomorrow than I did on the other days. I have completed my reading challenge and I'm so incredibly proud of myself. Like, even though 2 hours a day doesn't sound like a lot, it really was a lot at times, especially like on days where I didn't feel like reading. I'm really proud of myself, honestly, especially because of my bad mental health days at times and the stress I had last week and everything that was going on in my mind. Like, I'm so proud that I was able to do this. So let's talk about the last 2 books that I have finished. So first one being Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. It was so much fun to see like how Lauren Graham experienced like her whole life, and especially Gilmore Girls and the Gilmore Girls reunion as well. I do have to say, like, don't read this book when you haven't seen all of Gilmore Girls yet, because it will spoil everything, basically. But there were some parts that I didn't completely agree with. I don't know, she said something about an old lady Jackson and said that these were Old Lady Jackson's opinions, and then went on to say that Old Lady Jackson doesn't like cell phones and people always looking at screens, and also saying that back in the day, like studying and being bored of studying and not being able to sit still wasn't a disability, it was just being bored by studying. And as someone who has ADHD, I just don't really agree with this. And even though ADHD medication never really worked for me, it does work for a lot of people with ADHD. And to say that, I don't know, being described Adderall is a wrong thing. ADHD did exist back in the day. Even though people weren't being diagnosed, they were still struggling. And that like definitely tainted a lot of the book for me afterwards. So I can't give it 4 stars or 4.5 stars, how I probably would have rated it if those little scenes weren't existent in the book. But now that they were, I think I will rate this book around 3 or 3.5 stars. Alright, and then with the Book of Lost Things. Yeah, I always forget that name and I'm always like, is that what it's called? But yeah, the Book of Lost Things. I had these moments where I was like reading it and was feeling very enveloped in the story and felt very like into everything and felt like I was really living it. And then there were more moments where the story just completely dragged on and I was bored for my life. I think the reason for that is that it was a fairy tale story with a horror twist, but it was all written in a very childlike storytelling. So it was very like middle grade-ish written. Even though it had like some very horrible and horrific parts, it was still like in that childish way written, you know? Like when someone tells you a bedtime story. And I think that type of storytelling can be really interesting, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that type of storytelling. I just want to be like really emotionally connected to something. Like I just want to like completely relate to characters. And throughout the Once Upon a Time storytelling, I just couldn't find to deeply connect to David, the main character, and to the side characters. To some side characters I deeply connected, but to some I just didn't. So I would probably give the Book of Lost Things 3 stars, and talking as fast as I can, I will give around 3 stars as well. Because there were some plus sides, there were some downsides to these 2 books, but I still had a semi-great time reading them, so I still took some enjoyment out of them, and I'm glad that I read them. So I think that is all for this reading vlog, and thank you so much for sticking around, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!